Thank you so much. Welcome to UBC TV. Good morning. You're an extra hour from the Sports Vibe. My name is Jagenda Semakola Ziksoka on yet another very good day. And it is just 22 minutes after the hour of 9 o'clock this morning. It's a lovely morning. And of course, it is a Wednesday. We thank you so much for choosing to be with us right here. And of course, just getting into the conversations to let you know things are happening. Of course, we are waiting to see and to hear from Kenya. Martha Koome, the Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya, of course, just right there, getting through and preparing and waiting to see what happens, and of course to let the Kenyans know. One of the other things that is of course happening to Kenyans is the mysterious steps that are happening to commissioners at the IEBC. It's worrying Kenyans, and of course it's making it very expensive and costly for anybody to accept a job as a returning officer or a member of the IEBC. Nobody knows what is happening, but of course the perpetrators know what is happening. But to us in Uganda, and of course as members of the members of the community of the ESC, we pray that peace of course shall prevail in Kenya and things will continue to stabilize and get by and by. Well, with me today will be Ambassador Henry Maiga from Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates. Of course, we'll talk about the just concluded elections in Kenya, what that means to the rest of us, looking at a country like Kenya, which is an anchor state in Africa, and of course the several by-elections that we've also just undergone here in Uganda. We had one in Soroti not so long ago, we had one in Buchimbiri, we had one in Busongora. There's several by-elections, of course, that have been happening. What do they speak to us, especially when we talk about growing democracies in Africa, on the continent, and in Uganda for that matter. So that's where we'll be, and I just want to think now that my guest is already with me. If I could just have him, we get into the conversation. I want to thank you so much, Ambassador Henry Maiga, just right where you are. I know it's morning like it is morning here in Kampala. I can only say good morning to you and happy to see you. Let me hear your voice and know that I can now talk back to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jagenda, for yet another opportunity for us to be talking about motherland. And of course, what concerns one concerns all, and what concerns all also concerns one. As Ugandans, of course, there are quite a number of things that have been going on, including by-elections, as you stated in your beginning of the conversation. And all those things really matter to us, plus, of course, the economic conditions that we're going through, very, very important things.
Okay.
And so I'm really very happy for this opportunity that you have given us, you have given me to be part of this discussion on UBC.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let's start with Kenya and just pick lessons, because we've always desired and wanted to learn or pick lessons from what happened and what transpired in Kenya. You know, when you look back into our history, we get into the election of 1980, where Paul Mwanga, at that time a member of the commission, usurped the powers of the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, Mr. Ezekiel Chichira. He had a legal notice. He had a legal notice, of course, that took over the powers of the commission for that botched election. Of course, that we keep talking about repeatedly in our conversations in our history. We have seen what is happening in Kenya, and we've wanted to have lessons. When Kenyans went into elections on the 9th of this month, every one of us was saying, look at how calm the country is. No tear gas, no members on the street, no deployments, no street, nothing at all. People were actually just getting into the polls. Now, things are happening thereafter. There are mysterious states that are happening to commissioners. There are skirmishes, of course, back and forth, and a lot of things coming out. We are just starting to see that there could have been, or there was some not very good things that were happening, and here is where we are. What do we learn from a country like Kenya, whose democracy we in Uganda think and know it's a little grown than ours? And in Kenya, where they are, when you listen to the political players, Raila Amolo Odinga, for example, castigating the entire processes, the entire democracy, ABC. So what are some of the pertinent lessons that you think we can draw from the Kenyan election, which of course has not ended until Martha Koome says it's over?
Well, right from the start of the conversation, all I can say, are you hearing me?
Yes, I can hear
Jagenda?
you. I can hear you very well. You're very audible, you're very loud and clear.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, because, of course, my opening remark would be that Kenya probably finds itself where Uganda was in 1980. So it becomes very difficult for me even to look for lessons that we can pick from Kenya, because everybody knows what they went through in 2008 after those elections. And the rest, of course, is history. So I don't know, I'm struggling, just like everybody else, to pick up lessons from the experience that Kenya is going through. Because we have seen all these kinds of things before. It's good that you're mentioning the kinds of things that happened in 1980, where the work of the Electoral Commission was taken over by the chairman of the Military Commission, who was Paulo Mwanga. And then, of course, at that time, one thing which stands out is the fact that nobody went to court, not even Semogere himself, who alleged that those elections had been, rigged or something like that. So I struggle so much to find lessons to pick from the Kenya elections and what, of course, they are going through at the moment, apart from probably pointing out the fact that Raila has gone to court, which basically also Uganda has done, I don't know how many times. I lost count of how many times basically has stood against Uganda's best president, Yoweri Museveni. And he has lost to him. And he has always been going to court. Raila is also beginning on the journey of going to court. So I don't know, I'm really struggling to find any lessons to pick from Kenya, let alone the fact that we wish the Kenyans, since both of us as countries, Uganda and Kenya, belong to the East African community. So we just want to wish them the very best in as far as democracy is concerned, so that they don't go down the drain, because the price to pay as a result of going down the drain is so high, and therefore one wishes that Kenya goes through this. It's good that, of course, Raila, instead of jumping into other things, he has gone to court to find justice in courts. I hope he does find it. That would be lovely. That's all I can say in the meantime as an opening remark.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Maybe as we digress from Kenya, coming back here is Kenya has had scenarios. In 2013, they went to court, and Justice Mutunga said, no, we can't annul the election. In 2017, they went back to court, and Justice David Maraga, said the election was not a free and fair one. We annul the election. They're back in court again. Now, we've had both scenarios, which we have not had elsewhere, except maybe in Malawi recently, when they were annulling the election of Peter Mutharika. Do you think the outcome of this court ruling in this particular case will surprise anybody? Because we've seen both extremes. We've seen one court say we can't redo the election. We've seen another court say let's redo the election. Do you think any result now that will come from the Supreme Court of Kenya will take us by surprise, will shock us, will cause any destabilization to Kenyans and maybe to the region at large?
I think the fact of the matter is very simple. When you go for a contestation in elections and you stand like Raila did, like Besigye has been doing, like Bobi Wine has been doing, and quite a number of others have been doing in Africa, I think it is incumbent upon all those who go for those contestations to get to know the fact that you will either win or you will lose. But that appears not to have sunk in many people's heads in Africa. And therefore, you'll find that they will try to look for political relevance by going to the courts of law, most especially when it comes to presidential elections, and so on and so forth, because that's one way of continuing to be politically relevant in any political environment and in any country. So for me, what I can see happening in Kenya at the moment is that Raila is trying to remain politically relevant. And how do you do it after such a whooping loss? The best you can do is to go to the Supreme Court and try to appeal to them in the hope that probably the result from the elections is going to be overturned, and probably an opportunity is going to come so that the elections are repeated, and especially those elections definitely become extremely expensive in these particular times because most African and should I say global economies are actually struggling. And those elections are extremely expensive. So trying to look for political relevance is part of the story of running the court, as far as I can see. The second one is that probably you can force another round of voting so that probably you maybe perform better, which is a tall order as far as I'm concerned. The other one is probably to force the sharing of government. And I saw, I think, a congressman from the US visiting Kenya immediately after elections because in their view and the way they look at Africa is that they will come and coach us about how to do politics, how to do democracy, and so on and so forth. So all sorts of these scenarios probably, in my view, are possible. Political relevance is one. The other one is to force an election, the second round of elections, and probably somebody imagines that they are going to do better. And then the other one in Kenya, because it is not strange and as far as that country is concerned, is probably to force a government of national unity, because it has happened in Kenya before. All those things, I believe, are on the table by these people going to court. But I think at the backs of our mind, I think we should also come to realization that votes are not manufactured in the courts of law. There is no court that is going to manufacture votes. Votes are in the field where people go and campaign, where people go and look for votes, where the voting actually happens. There is no voting that happens in the courts of law. And therefore, by some, all the time and habitually going to courts of law in order to look for votes or this or the other, I think, in my view, is becoming extremely endemic in Africa. I have seen it in the US once when George Bush Jr. stood against Al Gore. And I think there was a court process that followed. And since that time, I haven't seen any other. Because the Americans, I think, have come to a conclusion that actually votes are not manufactured in the courts of law. They are in the field, you run a campaign. And these contestations, of course, there will be market waters that you're going to find along the way. And therefore, some people find it dissatisfactory that the outcome that happens after the voting has not gone their way. And therefore, they run to court. So for me, political relevance, forcing a government of national unity, and so on and so forth, are the things that probably are pushing Raila and the others to go to the courts of law. But of course, it is their right to go to the courts of law, try to find justice in courts as far as they are concerned.
Okay, thank you. You just bring out something very important, and I want to know from you, Ambassador Maiga, well as a political scholar, and of course a man who has been at it for all these years. Do you think that the winner-take-all syndrome is good for our democracies? Because I think this is one of the issues. You pointed a few numbers of, quite a number of issues just right there that you think the Azimio camp should be looking for. But let's examine it and look at it. In Uganda, for example, you get into an election and the NRM wins election with maybe 54%, the opposition comes with 30+%, and it becomes an NRM affair. Now it's the winner takes all. That's what we have. In Kenya, one of the things that we're talking about was the BBI. Remember, they've tried that kind of arrangement where you saw the botched election over 2007-8, the late now, Kibaki coming to government with Raila Odinga, and they made that formation, which of course promulgated their constitution in 2010, and they tried it out in 2013, and it's a constitution that they're actually working on today. Do you think an arrangement that brings, for example, come to Uganda, Bobby Wine, Kyagulanyi Centre of the National Unity Platform, gets 3+ million votes, 3.5 million votes. And he has nothing to do with them. He has nothing to do with them because the winner from the NRM has 6 million and then he takes everything. Now, Kyagulanyi Centre walks back to his crib with 3.5 million supporters who thought he would be. And nothing is there. But they have to wait for another election that comes after 5 years. Do you think that's good for our democracies in Africa, or we would have an arrangement where somebody with 3 million votes has some consideration. He's looked at as a leader, he's looked at as somebody who has all this following, that there could be some sort of arrangement and not practice a democracy of winner takes all.
Well, of course, that sentiment is a strong one, and it's not the first time I've heard about it. I remember one point in time we had a discussion with Norbert Mao, who is now Minister of Justice,
Non-constitutional
about
affairs.
Proportional representation. And I believe that is subject matter that you're bringing up, that when elections come and somebody gets 6 million, the other one gets probably 2 or 3 million, where does the system that we have, the system of democracy, place
the 3 million voters
as far as competitiveness is concerned and as far as participation in politics is concerned? Extremely important. But of course, it also supposes that the current constitution that we have and the current pieces of legislation that we have says so, that the winner takes all. And all you need, if you contest for president, is to win by 51% or anything slightly more than 50% of the vote. And then you take the entire reins of power in your hands and with your party together and so on and so forth. And, it's a contradiction, because you remember in 1986 when this administration had just taken over power, it brought everybody on board. The NRM government brought the rest of the political parties together, and it was called the broad-based government in 1986. I believe that those who are old enough still remember this. And out of that broad-based government that we had in 1986, many, after some time, opted out. I remember Kawanga Semogeri and quite a couple of others who had been part of the administration of President Yoweri Museveni in 1986. They didn't like it. They said, no, we want to go our own way, and blah, blah, blah. So you remember that in 2005, we had the referendum that decided the political direction of this country, where every political party participates in these elections, and they take probably a percentage of those very votes, and then so be it. And that has been, but we came from a situation which we are now talking about. So I don't know whether we're going to be moving in circles to go back to what we had in 1986, where there was that broad-based government. Of course, it wasn't based on an election, because it was actually based on the selection that was being done by the NRM administration to bring on board all shades of political opinion, not an outcome of elections. But of course, these things are debatable. And all of those who think that we should have a government of proportional representation, all they need to do is simply to convince the political system in the country so that the law is changed in such a way that we can all participate in these elections. But besides that, as of now, what obtains on the ground is that the law says that winner takes all. If people think that that should change, fine. They should raise that critical mass. That should change the law. And the avenues are very many. You can do it through a referendum, you can do it through parliament, you can do it through the district councils. All those options are open for Ugandans to decide on any contentious political matter in the country, including having back that proportional representation, so that when somebody gets the 6 million votes and another one gets the 3, they can be in the same government. Fine, that's okay, so be it. But as of now, what obtains is the fact that the pieces of legislation that we have, the constitution that we have, says that somebody who wins these elections, the presidential and parliamentary elections, by 50 plus of the vote, takes it all.
Okay. For example, we are having by-elections, and of course we've had by-elections in this country. We had one in Soroti, we've had in Buchimbiri, we've had in Busongora, and it just seems like one party is taking all these, of course growing their numerical strength and the majority in parliament. But we're talking about a multi-party dispensation. We're talking about an arrangement that we think should have checks and balances. When you go to countries like Ghana, for example, you notice that the current parliament in Ghana has equal numbers of the NPP and the NDC with just one independent, and I think he's the speaker. Now, you have a parliament that is balanced, that when an issue is before them, the NPP party of the president, the ruling president or the ruling party, And the NDC, that is in the opposition, have same numbers, 174, 174, I think 175 each of them, that they can get to a point and say, this is what we think is good for the country. Now, go to countries like Tanzania at the neighborhood here, where you have one party called the Chama cha Mapinduzi, with about 80% of members of parliament from the CCM. You only have pockets from the Civil Unity Front, from Chadema, and from ACT Wazalendo. Then again, the law for them allows the president to have 10 other nominees into parliament and just brings them in there. Go to the DRC here, where you also have a very unbalanced parliament. In Kenya, you've seen what has just happened right now. There's alliances, of course. When you look at the parties, when you look at the UDA party, when you look at the ODM, when you look at all these other parties, the Wiper, etc., etc. But of course, when you couple them into what they call the coalitions, you can see what the Kenya Kwanza has, you can see what the Azimio la Umoja has. You tend to see that they are trying to give that balance. It's not the case in Uganda, and of course, it's not the NRM's problem that they have many. But I just want to tap from you. Is that good for democracy, where you have a whole lot of anything or everybody against just a couple of them, and we're doing a democracy, we are into that. And of course, you in the NRM, the other day I was listening to the Vice National Chairperson for Eastern Uganda, Dr. Mike Mukula, saying, I am ensuring that I get anything out of the opposition into the NRM. What will that be? Would we have gone back to the days of the one-party state that we used to have? Will you take pride in a parliament that, of course, has all NRM and there are no checks and balances, nobody does this, nobody does that or so? Would that be good for democracy as well?
Well, all I can say is that the Baganda have got a saying that Omukisa Gwemba to Gwisa Mbuzi Maragara. I hope Mami Jagera, you know what that means.
Yes, I know.
Whereas Ghana has got Ghana's got its own mode of democracy. China, where I lived, has got its own mode of democracy where parliament only meets for 2 weeks in a year. In Uganda, your members of parliament meet throughout the year. They only go on recess for just a couple of days, or is it weeks or something like that. You have the British with their mode of democracy where it's parliamentary rule. And then you have the Americans where ministers are not part of parliament. So each one of these countries has got its own mode of democracy. And there is no one single, and I object always to those who want to lecture us, especially from the Western countries, that there should be one mode of democracy throughout the world. It can't be possible because we have different political orientations. And therefore, yes, you are going to have some of the precepts of democracy being the same. For instance, when it comes to regular and predictable elections like we do in Uganda after 5 years, whoever wants to contest for any political position, they can contest in those elections after every 5 years. You go to other places like in China where elections are by electoral college, and that is their mode of democracy. You go to the Americans, they have mid-term elections, something that is particularly very unique to the US. I have not seen it in any other country. So the point which I want to make here is that each one of these countries, whether you're talking about Kenya, whether you're talking about Uganda, Tanzania, DRC, Ghana, and so on and so forth, we have different modes of democracy. And there is no way how somebody can try to push, should I say, a round peg into, it's not possible, in other words, to force one mode of democracy on another country. Absolutely impossible. I remember last week I was involved in a conversation that was shortly before, I think about 2 weeks ago, when somebody asked me that why does the NRM always want to take all the constituencies, even these, the constituencies where by-elections are going to happen. Why does it want all those by-elections? And why does it want to win all of them? Why doesn't the NRM leave some of those constituencies to other political parties so that they can also be part of the political processes in the country? And my answer was very simple as far as politics is concerned, namely that these elections are always, based on quite a couple of principles. One of them is that you roll call. You have to roll call your membership. And therefore, in every constituency, definitely you're going to field a candidate. The only time when I've seen a political party not fielding candidates is when I think a member of parliament in the UK who was from the Labour Party was stabbed, and this is just a couple of years ago, was stabbed and she died. And then the Conservative Party agreed that, yes, okay, let's leave that constituency to the Labour Party. We are not going to field the candidate as Conservatives. I've seen that happen in the UK. But you see, the point to make here is that each one of these countries is going to have its own mode of democracy. For as long as the precepts of these democratic practices, the most important ones, are the same. For instance, are you having elections? Are you having representation? Are you having, a sense of belonging to various political parties of your wish? In other words, representing all sorts of shades of political opinion. That is extremely important. And as far as politics is concerned, and I don't think that winner take all will answer all of the problems of the country, or that when you have proportional representation, like the Germans sometimes have, and then your political problems are going to disappear. It doesn't work that way. Any one of these modes of democracy will have its own disadvantages and advantages, and therefore it is incumbent upon the various countries, the various players in politics to decide on which side of the political aisle they should be, and therefore what form of democracy they should have. And therefore, I don't find a problem myself with what's happening in Uganda, because we moved away from some kind of proportional representation or broad-basedness, because people didn't feel that they should be cajoled to be in one political system. And therefore, the Ugandans went to a referendum, a plebiscite that happened in 2005, and they agreed that everyone is free to belong to any political party, and therefore use that as a vehicle to access political power. And therefore, that is something that came as a result of a vote, as a result of democracy, as a result of people agreeing that this is the best way forward.
Thank you. Ambassador Maiga, did you look at our democracies as helping us to develop our countries? Because by and large, we want to grow the countries, we want to grow our economies. In Uganda, for example, we have the Vision 2040, which is what we are fighting to implement. Looking at the democracy that we have, or the system that we're running, does it help us to actually achieve our dream, which of course translates into the bigger one, the Africa Dream 2063? Do you look at us as implementing the type of systems that we have to get to where we want to be as a country and as a continent?
Actually, I have a problem, and this is a personal view. Because all these countries, let me begin with countries in Europe and probably the Americas and so on and so forth. Each one, again, takes me back to the first argument that I made, that each one of these countries has got its own mode of democracy that helps it to develop. Yeah? When you go to China, for instance, they have what they call democracy with Chinese characteristics. And you can see what China has achieved as a result of that democracy of theirs with Chinese characteristics. It used to be a very poor country. As we speak now, it has miraculously become number 2 in terms of economic strength in the world. And the predictions are that in the next 20 to 30 years,
has it become
China
powerful? Has it just become powerful miraculously, or they've done certain things? Is it just a miracle that happened to them? Have they just become number 2?
You can call it a miracle, but it depends on who is actually talking about that. I mean, what China has got through. As far as I'm concerned, what the kind of democracy they have in China has actually helped them to grow. And that kind of democracy is different from what has been happening in the US, because in China, as I said before, they don't have these kinds of elections that you have in Uganda, in the UK, in the US, and where our friends from the West have been lecturing us all the time, telling us what to do. And as far as democracy is concerned, I have said at the beginning of this conversation that in China, what happens is that, for instance, their parliament sits only for 2 weeks in a year. And when they come in February for those 2 weeks, they will return the following year in February. But you see that mode of democracy that China has, how it has changed the livelihoods of the Chinese and how it has built the economy of China from doldrums to a point of strength to the extent that they are now number two in terms of economic power globally. Extremely important. And whoever skips or makes a mistake of ignoring what China has gone through with their mode of democracy, I think it needs some kind of psychiatric attention, because China has done a miracle in as far as economic capacity is concerned as a result of them having their own mode of democracy. And therefore, when we talk about democracy growing a country, we have to be very careful, because we have, for instance, had democracy in Uganda since 2005. But is it democracy that is actually the driving force behind the level of development that we have in the country? In my view, I contest that. I don't think it is even democracy, because Uganda is making economic progress, not because of democracy, but rather, I think, because of the good policies that the Yoweri Museveni administration has actually put in place and restored sanity.
Okay. Well, you're saying something, Ambassador. I just hope I've not lost you.
Into the international files of honor as a result of those policies, not necessarily because of democracy. Democracy, even in the European countries, European countries, when you look at them, they did, in other words, really deepened their democracy after they made a lot of economic progress. Now, our lecturers from the West are telling us that we should have this democracy first, and then we grow our countries. And I can assure you, it is going to be extremely hard for us to ensure that our country grows, as far as we still think that from one election to another one is election mode. For instance, we had elections last year in 2021. We are still in election mode, probably after 2026, when we will have the next round of elections. And for me, as far as I'm concerned, that becomes really something that consumes much of our resources, because all the time we are involved in elections. If it's not youth councils, it is women councils, it is by-elections, it is politicking all the time, and that really consumes a lot of resources. And therefore, I just want to say that democracy does not necessarily bring democracy. I mean, bring growth in the country.
Okay, thank you so much. I will end with one colleague here, Kanso Kachinda Male Najib, says, good morning, Ambassador. I thank the Ambassador. In Uganda, no election has been annulled before, and in the recently just concluded presidential elections, the purported petition was also withdrawn for fear of loss. In my thinking, we are far better than all the other countries in Africa, save for Ghana, but he appreciates you. Council Male Kachinda says, even when no election has been annulled in this country, he still thinks we are better off than most countries in Africa, save for Ghana. Do you agree with him?
I agree 100%, because for me, what do I want to see? It's not necessarily elections. Yes, we must have elections, fine, that's okay, every 5 years. But let's forget about election mode or electioneering all the time after elections. What do I want? What I want as a citizen of Uganda is security, good roads, good health facilities, good garbage collection, good infrastructure in the country. Those are the basic things that I want to see. If I have them, fine, you can go ahead and elect yourselves. I don't have any grudge against you. So I actually agree with Councillor Kakinda because I think it's important as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, finally, your conclusive remarks in the next about 2 minutes. Of course, the by-election that we've had here, the issues happening in Uganda, the cost of living, people are just getting used. Jam is actually now recycled on our roads, even when fuel is into 7,000. We're just getting used to situations. Your final comments. You're not in Uganda, you're in Dubai. We do not know what is happening in Dubai, but we're in Uganda. Your final comment before we let you go.
I think I saw Kizza Besigye trying to advance an argument, which in my view was very faulty. And of course, she was encouraging people to go to the streets. And I'm seeing, is it Nyanjura, somebody who is a deputy mayor in Kampala, as one of those who...
She's Doreen Nyanjura.
Kizza Besigye was talking about that people should take to the streets as a result of commodity prices skyrocketing. And of course, I disagreed with that because this is a global problem. As we speak now, stories are abound of how supermarkets and so on and so forth are actually lacking in terms of those very commodities. In the Western countries, you go and find empty shelves all over the place and so on and so forth. The price of fuel has gone up, and I've seen the US leaders trying to come to the Middle East here, try and beg for an increment in the production of oil so that the prices can go down. I have seen people in Pakistan trying to protest as a result of that. I have seen people in South Africa, India, Tanzania, and quite a couple of other countries. Name them. And as far as I'm concerned, this is a global problem. And the causes for these commodity prices going up are actually very clear. And so those in Uganda who think that it's an exclusive problem of Uganda are actually making a mistake, because all over the world, the prices of commodity prices are going up. Therefore, what we need to do as a country is to ensure that good policies are in place, which I believe the Yoweri Museveni administration is doing, so that at the end of the day, everybody is cushioned against the adversity of those skyrocketing prices.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Henry Maiga, our Consular General in UAE. We thank you so much, and I think we should now let you go. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Imam Jagenda.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Our Consul General in Dubai, Mr. Henry Maiga, just with us, of course, discussing quite a number of issues. And of course, we want to thank you for your time whenever we call on you. To find time, join us on Good Morning Uganda Extra, just right here on our UBC TV. It is a Wednesday, and of course, we want to just let you know that at 10 tonight, our weekly Behind the Headlines, of course, will be coming your way. 10 tonight, Charles Odongtho, of course, with the panelists, will be here to just promise you it's one of those others that you need to catch up with every Wednesday. My name is Jagenda Semakola Zikusoka, wishing you all the best for today. God bless you. For God and my country. Shalom.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala.